Welcome back to Supreme Auto Elite. The price tag shock. In the last few years, something strange has happened in the world of automobiles. Something unheard of. Something that goes against basic economics. Something that shocked buyers all over the world. Used cars. Old cars. Cars with dents, scratches, thousands of kilometers on the meter. Suddenly started costing more than new ones. A bizarre moment in history where a 3-year-old car became more expensive than a brand new model. But why? Why did used cars become so painfully, shockingly expensive? This is the full story. A story about supply chains, global shortages, human behavior, fear, timing, economics, and a market that turned completely upside down. Welcome to Why Are Used Cars So Expensive? Chapter 1. The Automotive World Before the Crisis. Before the world changed, the used car market was predictable. Cars depreciated. That was the rule. A car lost 10–20% value the moment it left the showroom. Then every year, it lost more. The system was simple. New car supply was stable. Used car demand was normal. Dealers bought low and sold slightly higher. Prices followed predictable patterns. A 5-year-old car always cost less than a new one. A high-mileage car always dropped faster. Cars were depreciating assets, like phones, laptops, and appliances. But then, the world changed. Chapter 2. The pandemic that flipped the market. When COVID-19 arrived in 2020, factories shut down across the world. For the first time in modern history, car factories closed, chip factories closed, shipping ports shut down, workers couldn't go to work. Supply chains completely froze. The automotive industry had never seen anything like this. Car companies expected demand to collapse, so they reduced production. But they were wrong. Chapter 3. The Real Problem. A Global Microchip Shortage. If the automotive crisis were a movie, the villain would be the microchip shortage. Modern cars depend on microchips for almost everything. Engine control, transmission, ABS, sensors, infotainment, climate control, airbags, safety systems. ADAS. A single car needs 1,000 to 3,000 chips. When chip factories shut down, smartphones, computers, and medical equipment got highest priority. Cars were placed at the bottom of the line. So even when car factories reopened, they couldn't produce cars. Imagine thousands of half-made cars sitting in factories, waiting for a tiny $3 chip. Suddenly, new cars became rare. Dealers had empty showrooms. Waiting lists grew from weeks to months, even years. Some buyers were told, greater than, your car will arrive in 18 to 24 months. This pushed millions of people toward the used car market. And that's when things exploded. Chapter 4. Demand skyrockets for used cars. People needed cars. Public transport was restricted. Ride-sharing felt unsafe. Families wanted their own vehicles. Workers needed transportation. Online shopping created delivery demand. But new cars were unavailable. So everyone rushed into one place. The used car market. Imagine 10 people fighting for one car. Now imagine that happening in every city of every country. Demand skyrocketed, but supply stayed the same. That's basic economics. When demand rises and supply stays limited, prices explode. Dealers started paying over market value just to have inventory. People who never bought used cars before started buying them. Ride-hailing drivers started hoarding cheap cars. Parents bought second cars for safety. And sellers realized something shocking. Greater than, I can sell my 3-year-old car for more than I originally bought it. This had never happened in modern automotive history. Chapter 5. Car prices decouple from reality. Suddenly, the used car market became insane. 5-year-old cars cost like brand new cars. 2-year-old cars became luxury items. 10-year-old cars doubled in price. Clean cars with low mileage became gold. Dealers bought any running vehicle, no matter how old. Cars stopped depreciating. They started appreciating. Car flippers, dealers, investors, and ordinary people started treating cars like assets, not liabilities. Some even made YouTube videos. Greater than, I owned my car for 2 years and sold it for a profit. The entire global car market broke. Chapter 6. Supply chain breakdown, the full story. To understand the price surge, we need to explain the full supply chain collapse. 1. Factory shutdowns. Plants in Japan, Germany, South Korea, the US, and China shut down. Millions of cars never got built. 2. Chip shortages. Cars need chips. Chips were unavailable. Manufacturers prioritized high-end models and SUVs, abandoning cheaper models. 3. Shipping crisis. Ports clogged. Containers piled up. Shipping a car or parts became 10 times more expensive. 4. Raw material shortages. Steel, aluminum, rubber, plastics, and lithium became expensive. 5. Workforce shortages. Millions quit jobs in the Great Resignation. Car mechanics, truck drivers, factory workers, all became fewer. Every step of the chain broke, adding delays, increasing costs, and making cars rare. Chapter 7. The Rise of Car Hoarding and Speculation. Something unusual happened. People started investing in used cars like real estate. Why? Because prices kept rising every month. Dealers bought everything. Exporters bought everything. Ride-hailing companies bought everything. Some people bought 2 to 3 used cars at once and waited for prices to rise even more. Used cars became liquidity, assets, investments. Instead of buying gold, some people bought cars. This was not normal. This was a bubble. But the bubble wasn't done growing, not yet. Chapter 8. Inflation hits the automotive world. Global inflation reached the highest levels in decades. Everything became more expensive. Fuel, tires, parts, shipping, insurance, repairs. Manufacturers raised prices of new cars. Dealers raised prices of used cars. People raised prices when selling their own cars. If a new car becomes $3,000 more expensive, the used version automatically increases too. Inflation plus shortages equals deadly combination. Chapter 9. New car prices push used prices up. A strange thing happened. A car that cost $25,000 before the pandemic was now $32,000. So naturally, used cars jumped from $18,000 right pointing arrow $26,000. Old cars jumped from $12,000 right pointing arrow $17,000. Cheap cars jumped from $5,000 right pointing arrow $10,000. Even 15-year-old cars became expensive because people with low budget had no choice. Chapter 10. The banks enter the game. When banks noticed the rising prices, they extended longer loans, more flexible approvals, low interest incentives. They financed cars worth more than their real value, something that never happened before. Dealers loved it. Buyers loved it. It created more demand, which created more price increases. A cycle out of control. Chapter 11. EVs and hybrids add a new problem. Electric and hybrid vehicles became more popular. But they need even more chips. Meaning, EV production slowed, hybrid production slowed, demand shifted to used hybrids. Prices of Prius, Civic Hybrid, and Corolla Hybrid exploded. People wanted fuel-efficient cars due to rising petrol prices. This pushed even more demand into the used car market. Chapter 12. Why the poorest buyers suffered most. Low-budget buyers got hit the hardest. The cars they usually bought, old, small, cheap cars, doubled in price. What used to be 500,000 rupees became 900,000. 800,000 rupees became 1.4 million. 1 million rupees became 2 million. Cheap cars went extinct. Only expensive cars remained. People with low income had fewer options. Ride-hailing drivers struggled. Delivery riders switched to bikes. A transportation crisis began. Chapter 13. When used cars became more expensive than new ones. A shocking moment in automotive history. Dealers began selling used cars for more than new cars' MSRP. Imagine a brand new Toyota costing $30,000, but the 1-year-old used version costing $34,000. This happened across the world. USA, Canada, UK, Middle East, Pakistan, India, Europe. Why? Because new cars weren't available. People needed cars now, not 18 months later. Used cars became instant delivery. So they became more valuable, even when older. Chapter 14. The export boom that emptied local markets. Another hidden force behind rising used car prices was export demand. Countries like UAE, Russia, Africa, Central Asia, Middle East, started buying used cars from America, Japan, Korea, UK, Europe. Why? Because their own new car supply collapsed even more. In Dubai, exporters were buying thousands of used cars per week from the US. These were shipped in containers to other countries. When foreign buyers enter the market, they bring strong currency. Dollars, euros, dirhams, pounds. That makes them able to outbid local buyers easily. Dealers in the US, UK, Japan, and Canada started saying, greater than, exporters are buying everything. Local buyers can't compete. This drained local supply in many countries. Fewer used cars available. Right pointing arrow. Prices rise even more. Chapter 15. The rise of car subscriptions and leasing pressure. New trends started worldwide. Car subscriptions, monthly leasing, corporate rental programs. These companies buy cars in bulk. When new cars became scarce, they shifted to buying used cars. That increased demand massively. When 20,000 50,000 cars are purchased by a single leasing company in a month, the market gets squeezed. Used cars that once sat unsold suddenly became valuable commodities. Chapter 16. How social media fueled the price surge. Social media made the situation even worse. People posted, "I sold my car for profit. Used cars are gold. Buy now before prices rise again. Price increase expected next month." This caused panic buying. People rushed to buy cars before they became even more expensive. Artificial demand. Some people bought cars even when they didn't need one. Dealer hype. Dealers created fear-based ads. Last chance. Stock finished everywhere. Prices rising tomorrow. Buy today. Even though markets were collapsing, hype kept prices high. Behavior economics took over, not logic. Chapter 17. Why governments couldn't control prices. Governments tried. Import restrictions, tax adjustments, loan rules, fuel policies, registration limits, but the root problems were global. Chip shortage, factory shutdowns, shipping crisis, high inflation, demand surge. No single government could fix these. Car markets became so interconnected globally that one problem in China or Japan affected the entire world. Cars stopped being local products. They became global machines. So governments lost control, temporarily. Chapter 18. The myth of car shortage will end in 3 months. Throughout the crisis, experts kept saying, greater than, just 3 more months and supply will normalize. But that didn't happen. Why? Because supply chains recover slowly. When production stops for even 1 month, the backlog takes years to fix. Car factories work like airports. If one flight is delayed, everything after it is delayed too. The same happened with cars. A shortage of chips delayed assembly. A shortage of workers delayed inspection. A shortage of containers delayed shipping. A shortage of drivers delayed delivery. A shortage of dealers delayed distribution. Every link created more delays. It was a chain reaction. Chapter 19. When new car production finally returns, prices still don't fall. By late 2023-2024, many countries restarted production. But something shocking happened. Used car prices didn't drop. Why? Here are the real reasons. 1. Production capacity was still lower than demand. Factories couldn't instantly return to full speed. 2. Manufacturers prioritized expensive models, because they give more profit. 3. Rental and leasing companies restocked aggressively. They bought thousands before the public even got a chance. 4. Inflation permanently increased the cost of car manufacturing. Materials, shipping, labor, everything became more expensive. 5. Consumers now expected long waits, so they stayed in the used car market. Demand remained high. In simple words, the world didn't have enough cars for everyone. Chapter 20. The crash of car value logic. Before the crisis, cars' right pointing arrow depreciating asset value dropped predictably. Buyers were relaxed. After the crisis, cars' right pointing arrow semi-investment asset value unpredictable. Buyers afraid to miss out. The fundamental psychology changed. When psychology changes, markets change permanently. People no longer think, greater than, I will lose money on a car. They think, greater than, if I don't buy now, it will be more expensive later. This mindset kept prices high long after shortages ended. Chapter 21. The Global Rise of Affordable Car Extinction. One of the saddest outcomes. Cheap cars disappeared. Why? Manufacturers focused on SUVs. Small cars gave low profit. Regulations increased costs. Safety features needed more chips. Emission rules increased prices. No company wanted to build cheap cars anymore. So the world faced a new problem. The disappearance of affordable transportation. People with low budgets were forced to buy 20-year-old cars, high mileage, unreliable vehicles, flood-damaged imports, accident cars with repaired bodies. Even those became expensive. Chapter 22. The Rise of Car Repairs and Parts Shortages. When used cars became expensive, people held onto old cars longer. That created a new issue. Parts shortages. Workshops struggled to find sensors, ABS modules, bumpers, headlights, ECUs, engine parts. Prices of parts went up. Repair charges went up. Insurance claims went up. Premiums went up. Keeping an old car running became expensive. But buying a new one was even more expensive. So people were stuck. Chapter 23. Interest rates and the financial storm. As inflation rose, central banks increased interest rates. That meant car loans became expensive. Monthly installments doubled. Buying power decreased. Fewer people could afford new cars. So the remaining buyers again moved to the used market. Demand remained high, keeping prices high. It was a loop. High new car prices, right pointing arrow, people buy used. High interest on new, right pointing arrow, people buy used. Used demand, right pointing arrow, used prices rise. A perfect storm. Chapter 24. Regional differences in used car price explosion. Different regions experienced different levels of price shock. United States. Prices of used cars went up by 45–70% depending on the model. United Kingdom. Bidding wars became common. Dealers paid above retail to secure stock. Japan. Auction prices jumped dramatically. Pakistan. Massive inflation, import ban, and dollar shortage increased prices. India. Massive rise in demand for second-hand vehicles after lockdown. Middle East. Export demand increased used prices in Dubai and Sharjah. Africa. Used Japanese imports became extremely expensive due to shipping limitations. The crisis became global. Every region was affected. Chapter 25. Why some dealers made record profits. Dealers benefited massively. Bought cars cheap, sold them at huge margins. Had very little competition. Inventory demand remained high. Customers had no choice. Some made more money in 2 years than in the previous 10 years. But this wasn't sustainable. The market was inflated, unnaturally. And sooner or later, inflated markets correct themselves. Chapter 26. Did the used car market become a bubble? Economists noted all signs of a bubble. Irrational buying, panic demand, prices rising without logic, speculators entering, car values far above real worth, buyers paying above MSRP. But unlike housing bubbles, car bubbles don't behave the same. Because cars are necessities. People need them to live, work, and travel. So even though it looked like a bubble, it didn't burst suddenly. Instead, it slowly deflated. Chapter 27. When prices finally started cooling down. Around late 2023 to 2024, more new cars arrived, chip supply recovered, factories increased production, shipping became normal, inflation slowed down, dealers got more inventory, used car prices started falling. But only a little. Why? Because the world still had high production costs, strong demand, expensive new cars, high interest rates, limited affordable models, meaning, even after the crisis ended, used cars remained expensive. Not crazy high, but still far above pre-pandemic levels. Chapter 28. The New Normal. Permanently expensive used cars. Experts now agree, used cars will never return to the cheap prices of 2018–2019. Why? 1. Manufacturing permanently more expensive. Materials, labor, and technology costs cannot go back. 2. SUVs have replaced cheap small cars. SUVs cost more, so used SUVs cost more too. 3. EVs require expensive technology. Batteries, sensors, software, all costly. 4. People keep cars longer. Less turnover equals fewer used cars for sale equals higher prices. 5. Inflation permanently raised value floors. The base price of everything increased. The world has entered a new era. Cheap used cars are gone forever. Chapter 29. The Future of the Used Car Market 2025-2030. Where is the market going next? Experts predict prices will slowly decrease, but only in premium models, not in cheap cars. Very old cars, 15-20 years, may drop in value. As parts become unavailable, fuel prices will push more buyers toward hybrids. Used hybrid demand will remain high. EV used market will become unpredictable. Battery health will determine price, not age. Shipping and global trade becoming stable will reduce export pressure, which may slightly ease prices. But the overall prediction is, used cars will remain expensive for the next decade. Chapter 30. Conclusion. What really caused used cars to become so expensive? After analyzing everything, the real reasons are: 1. Pandemic shutdowns. 2. Microchip shortage. 3. Shipping crisis. 4. Factory delays. 5. Inflation. 6. High demand for personal transportation. 7. Export demand. 8. Dealer speculation. 9. Long wait times for new cars. 10. Rise of SUVs and expensive models. 11. Loan and interest dynamics. 12. Changes in consumer psychology. It wasn't one reason. It was a perfect storm of many factors colliding at the same time. The used car market of today is not an accident, it is the result of global economic forces reshaping the world. And now, a car isn't just a machine. It's a financial decision, a necessity, a commodity, an investment, a survival tool. This is the complete story of why used cars became so expensive, and why they may never be cheap again.